Hello, thank you very much for coming to our session. It's going to be 1 hour of a paper that is something of a disruption, something of a risk, because we're going to get you to play. I'm going to talk for 10 minutes and we'll pass over to David, who is going to show you some research that he's been doing and some unpacking of some of the practices. And then we'll move to Phil, who is going to have you engaged in interactively making digital music together. And then we're going to take the questions. This particular project, I mean, there it is. You see something on the stage, which is music, a discourse, a language. Sleep, play, sleep. I mean, how beautiful is that? Sleep and play. Is that an icon for life? I think that's a wonderful thing. And that's what we're going to be doing today. The toolkit is on the website, and the website is down there, Sonic Pi Live Encoding. And I was going to show you, they've got a 1 minute film that it's streaming too slowly. It's got a 10-minute film in more detail. It actually has class plans. It has examples of artists and their compositions, because some people have said, you know, we don't see what live coding is. We don't see who are live coders. And often DJs, you know, club cultures, people are working with live coding. Dancers, digital medias are working with live coding, with coding. But we're not actually seeing the application of that. So if you go to the videos, which won't come on at the moment because we're in a kind of a dead spot, but you'll see women also live coding and compositions where they're called Sonic Pi exemplars of contemporary artists working in these ways. Lots of photos. Will this come up? Yes, they will. We had 3 sites. We were in two schools, and then we ended with a 1-week summer school. And this is just going to give you some of the ideas, some of the sort of view, some of the immersion, some of the context. Sam Aaron, who is the developer of Sonic Pi, the project was R&D, research and development, Nesta funded and Arts Council funding. And this was the summer school. We had parents come for a final concert, which had a blended, you know, acoustic, digital, and there we go, beautiful photo. And also all sorts of creative ways of working with digital processes. But let me go back to show you some examples of Sonic Pi. Here is an example of a piece that we gave them, Get Lucky, and we asked them to make this was the first task, to change any of the elements at all. And this was one child's response to that, Get Lucky. So they could change the bass, they could change the sound of the synth. That's one child's response to that. Let me give you another one. So your task is to make the changes to the code. Jump straight in. But this morning I thought I'd actually take a risk, and I was playing around with some ideas at about 2 o'clock this morning. I don't know what people thought who had bedrooms next to mine, but I was working with the potential of showing you some ideas. Here's one other composition. I just want to look at the name, Digesting the City. Listen to this. These were, the 2 kids were on the front page. They were brother and sister. That's a sense of humour as far as I'm concerned. Okay, that's not my piece. That was not my piece. Here is my piece from this morning. I've got a couple, and I'd like to change some. Pam in an ambient darkness. Yes, there is darkness. Let me see if I can change some of this right now, and see if I can change some of the parameters. And right, let's lighten it up a bit. Yes, this is my Queen of Pop version, which I really had fun doing last night. I'll stop before we go into the heavy kind of where everybody's building up. I was thinking about Ibiza at the time. Getting ready, you know, before the... And then it would go something like, I'll stop there, it goes on for too long. And let's look at this one, inner and outer space. And look how simple this code is. It doesn't have to be a long string. Let's change some of these parameters again. I'm just going very quickly. Okay. These pictures are playing at random. Idea of what liveness is, of actually what this thing called Sonic Pi is. So what is this thing? Live codeness, live coding, liveness. Practice principles. It's writing and editing of computer code using the elements of music, pitch, frequency, sustain. You're not talking in this usual context of the musical elements we usually work with melody and pitch and chords. You're working in an algorithmic context, but working with the elements of music. Coding is on the screen and projected, an integral part of the performance. When people are in live coding performances, those in the audience are sitting around like you are and wishing that the code will actually break. And you see some sweat, like you're seeing with me, pouring down, and you're getting yourself out of that problem-solving place. So it is very much coding on exploration. It's a different feeling to sitting at the piano and improvising a jazz standard or playing a Beethoven sonata. It can be solos, network, it can be together as a collective, and we'll be seeing this later on today. We're arguing that this is digital making. I think we need to think about the language. I think we need to get into the 21st century. Digital making with digital technology, but they're also working with sound creation. And this is a quote from Evelyn Glennie. She was talking that children are sound creators. And I was creating the sound just then. I was improvising nervously and actually presenting a performance, and normally I wouldn't have my back to you. There would be some sort of sense of performative space, but the form of authorship is different. It's on the fly. The code score is being seen, and it's actually, you'll see it later on when David and Phil present their work as well. The code is written and executed in the performance. So in this particular project we had a lot of partners. We were working with a program developer, Sam Aaron, who was working from Sonic Pi version 1 to Sonic Pi version 2. So he was developing and asking and looking at kids in 2 schools to see what was working and what wasn't working, and how he needed to engage in a more streamlined and accessible software program, share free to the public. 3 schools and a summer school, and lots of artistic partners. Juno projects were the artists that set up the concept of how to perform in a very public way, with all of the students working with Sonic Pi and how to put that together. And there was the computer labs involved, and I was the researcher. There was a lot of partners and a lot of expertise. The teachers that taught the program were the guitarists. What? They normally do 1-to-1. What are they doing teaching classes? We purposefully put them in front of classes so that they too were at risk. Not of exploding or whatever, but actually being sort of explorers, exploring a new way of working with a new program software. So everybody was out of their comfort zone, especially the music teachers at the back of the room who desperately wanted to say stuff, but of course were trying to actually engage the community in ways, interprofessional collaborative learning. And that particular way of thinking, I'm calling it interthinking, where professionals come together and they have to work with emergent practices. They have to think differently, not about established systems, but to create together, co-create together. And the resilience and the responsiveness that underpins the risk-taking that everyone is doing was palpable. So live coding is digital making, which involves experiences of uncertainty and vulnerability, two very key terms. Risk-taking is a source of learning. It's not a dirty word. And risk-taking as a source of creativity. There are lots of people writing about risk-taking, pedagogies of risk. Learning pathways to live code music, new discourses, new temporalities. I'm wanting to disrupt you, so that's looking like this on purpose. It's not a mess-up, it's a mash-up of ideas. Trial and error practices, risk-taking practices were developed. This next one is live performance, different forms of live performance. Ways that we don't see when we put on a Western classical performance. And participatory and performative blends. People talk about participatory, people talk about performative practices. This was a blend of participatory and performative. You might, I hope, have seen a little bit of that just before when I was doing a little bit of coding, and it was meant to be performative as well as participatory in terms of working live with stuff. And self and social interthinking, it's not a new term, it's used by Neil Mercer and Karen Littleton when they're talking about ensemble and people working in groups. Fred Seddon worked with that idea as well. One quote from a child: their voices are limited because I've only got 10 minutes and I'm over now. I do something and then it breaks, it being the code, breaks. This is not a bad word. To break something, you think we've got to rethink what that word means. And then I try again, risk. This is about trial and error. I try again, then I learn something. The recognition of how to fix it. And in that moment, you're learning something. And that just happens over and over. And so, it's a force for change. It is about digital makers and sound creators, a different way of thinking about the discourse of music education. We have identified new and accessible pathways, and I think you're going to experience this shortly, and new styles of live performance, liveness, enabling also interdisciplinary entries, and this is the exciting one. This is entering into the STEM and the STEAM arena, which is again a contemporary environment to think about arts and music education and children of the future having and creating happy and healthy and sustained lives. Involve STEM and STEAM. Empowering teachers to develop new teaching paths. Co-develop new teaching paths through these interprofessional learning. This girl is a legend. She's a geek girl. She's written a book on adventures in Raspberry Pi. If you also look up the Geek Girl Diaries, you'll see Carrie-Anne Philbin, who is a computer science teacher who's been poached by Raspberry Pi as the ambassador of education. Absolutely, a wonderful role model. We need role models of these people. And then we move to women in computer science. I don't think I'll ever see my face there, but I want to have that on the walls of every single music, classroom, from the nurseries and the primary schools and the secondary schools up. So I think we need to be at least 10% braver. I am just doing what I did. Okay. Tag.